In this video, we are going to be sewing up the Lauren Tote by Lauren at Mormino. It's a traditional style tote bag with a zipper closure. Hi sewing friends, I'm Stephanie and this is Ashtown Creations. The Lauren Tote, I have lost track of how many of these I've made over the years. It's my most popular bag at markets. Now, I don't sell one every time I have a market, but they do sell, and I have sold out of all of the ones I've made. I like to use a cotton canvas or a linen cotton canvas on the main part of the body so that I can highlight patterns. I like to use cork on my handles and base. I put bag feet on them, and in this case I have a special Mickey slider. There we go. And I believe Lauren also designed this fabric. I'm pretty sure she designed the fabric. Don't know if she still has any. If I find she does, I will link it in the description box below. And this hardware was her design as well. So for this bag I have used, as I said, Lauren's, I think it's a canvas. It feels like a canvas, but it doesn't feel as heavy as the linen cotton canvas. I've used an orange cork. I've used rainbow hardware, and also the hardware on here is a dual connector. The bottom part is bigger than this. So it goes from a 1 inch to a 3/4 inch, but it also has this loop at the top here where you can hook on a crossbody strap. Now I don't usually make the crossbody strap to go with these bags. That's an add-on if somebody decides they want after. And then the lining for this bag, I have waterproof canvas. I have added a zipper overlay, one of Lauren's tags, and then on the other side I have added a slip pocket. Now, I'm pretty sure in the pattern there's a reference to a slip pocket, but I didn't see any dimensions. So I came up with the dimensions for these bags myself. So I'm pretty sure I've said the dimensions in the tutorial. If not, I will make sure I have it on the screen if you are wanting to do that. So these bags don't take me very long to make. You can do them with whatever you want. I generally order linen cotton canvas from Spoonflower to do these. I just thought I would do this one with the fabric from Lauren because I need to use it up and I thought it'd be kind of cute. So usually I buy Spoonflower's linen cotton canvas. I get just enough for one of these bags with the pocket inside and maybe one or two of something like a Louis waist pack. So there's very little waste with these. All of the hardware and fabric, if I can find it, I will post it in the description box below. I will also include timestamps for the video so you can skip to different sections if you like. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel. That would be great. Any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. And yeah, I think that's it. Let's get sewing this bag. I want to say thank you to Lauren from Mormino for allowing me to record this tutorial for you. Let's go through the pieces for this Lauren tote bag. So up here I have got some fabric. This was from Lauren Mormino. I think it's one of her designs. It feels like it's a kind of cotton, but I think it's a little thicker than cotton. Right now I have it interfaced with a woven interfacing, and I have put Decaville Light on the back. So I have two exterior pieces here, and I've got my orange cork here. This is the base, and on the back side of the base I have my Decaville Heavy. I've already marked where I want to put my purse feet on this. Now, you're not really supposed to heat up cork, but I haven't had any problems applying heat to the Decaville Heavy on a piece of cork. I have not had problem with the cork. So I'm going to continue to do that, but you need to watch because it can separate the lamination. So over here I have two pieces of Ottertex waterproof canvas in a burnt orange color, and just notice that they're two different lengths. So one of them is the same as the exterior and one of them has a longer piece. And what this longer piece really is the base. So you want to make sure that you've cut two different lengths for your interior lining panels. I've got 4 pieces cut here out of cork, and these are my strap connectors or handle connectors, and these are my handles. So both the handle connector I've marked already down this, a line down the center, and I've put some double-sided tape down on all of them. And then for the handles, I have again marked a line down the center, but I put a little strip of double-sided tape on either side of the line. So I've got 2 handles and 4 connectors. For the interior of the bag, so on the lining panels that I just showed you, there is a zipper pocket in the pattern. I believe she mentions a slip pocket, but I had to come up with the size for my slip pocket. I have done 6.5 by the width of the pattern or the panel. I'll be sewing those together, and then I will be adding this accent piece of cork across the top. So I have not interfaced this cotton. I think the OtterTex will give it enough stability. We'll be stitching lines in it, so it should be fine. It shouldn't flop over. This is what I like to do on the inside of a Lauren tote bag. So this is a slightly modified version. I have taken the 2 zipper panels and I have actually cut them slightly different sizes. So one will be the front and one will be the back. I have also cut out of my orange cork an overlay piece for the zipper pocket. For the hardware, I am going to be using this rainbow hardware. I have a matching zipper pull, so this is a pumpkin Mickey Mouse zipper pull that I also got from Lauren Mormino. This is a black rainbow zipper. The coils are iridescent rainbow. So I've got 1 zipper for the outside, 1 for the inside. For the outside zipper, I've got my 2 zipper tabs, 1 for each end. I have got 4 dual strap connectors. So for this one, it will be different on the bottom than the top. So these are a 1 inch to a 3/4 inch. So the straps, the handles are smaller than the connectors. These are also Lauren's design, and I got them from her. I have a pretty plain inside zipper. I have 5 purse feet. Also from Lauren, I don't know if you can see it. It says Made with Magic. I've got some of these a while ago and I just want to use them up. I've got a metal bag label that says handcrafted. I don't remember where I got that label from. If I can find it, I will post a link to it in the description box below. Everything that I'm showing you, if I can find it, I will post a link in the description box below. And then finally for this, I have my Ashtown Creations cork bag label that I will also be putting on the outside of the bag. So that looks like that's everything. So let's get sewing this bag. The first thing that we're going to do while we have a mostly full bobbin, we're going to work on the handles. As I mentioned, I've already got them marked down a center line. We're going to be folding into the center and then folding them on again. So I'm going to start with one side. I'm removing the paper from the double-sided tape. I'm going to start in the center and I'm going to fold over the long edge towards the line that I drew, but I'm not going to go all the way to the center. I'm going to leave a little bit, I'm not sure if we can see that, a little bit on either side, because we're going to be like I said, folding in to the center and then on itself again, and we need to have the space to be able to fold it the second time. We need to have a little bit of space in there. So I'm going to go down one side. I usually start in the center and work my way out so that I'm not stretching the cork or vinyl. It doesn't matter, it's the same for either. And then I'm going to take the backing off of the other side and fold it into almost the middle. As you can see, I have not met the long edges up in the center. I have left a little space. So now I'm going to go and start folding it in half again so that we have about that much. So I took it, I folded it in so that the center line here is actually inside. So then I'm going to start clipping. There we go. Go ahead and do the other one and then we'll turn around and stitch this up. So we're going to work on our handles. I've got one here. I'm going to start on the open side, stitch about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge down to the bottom, up the side and back. I don't want to start on the folded edge because that can skew the sides. I've got them nicely matched up right now. I want them to stay nicely matched up. So anyways, under the needle, and I have it on a 5-stitch length already, and I will be back stitching. And I'm going to put my fingers on either side to try and help guide it. I've got my thumb under here to keep the clips from catching on my table. So as I mentioned, down one side, across the bottom, and back up the other side. I trimmed up the threads, and now I'm going to grab my scissors and just trim up the ends. So I'm just taking off a bit so that this looks even. I'm gonna grab my lighter and just run the lighter over the end and then over the stitches. Do the same on the other side. Go ahead and do your other strap, and then we can set these aside. Now we're going to work on the strap connectors. So as I mentioned, I've got 4 pieces. They're all cork, and I've already marked them down the center, and I've put a piece of 1/4-inch tape. I'm doing that so that I can stick them to fold them into the center, the long edges into the center, but I'm trying to keep the tape out of my seams. So I'm just going to remove the paper backing from the tape. I'm going to fold the long edge into the center, and this time I want it right up against the line. So I've got one side folded in. Now I will do the other side. I'm just going to grab, I have this 1/2-inch tape that I want to use on this. So now that I've got it folded into the center and the center line join is right there, I want this to be on the inside of my connector. So I'm going to take one of my dual strap connectors. So I know I mentioned that this isn't 1 inch, this is 3/4, but this little loop on the top is for a crossbody strap. Now, I don't generally make crossbody straps when I'm making these bags. If somebody requests it, then I can make one as a custom order, but it saves money if I don't make one and then they just throw it in a closet or something. I'd have to charge a lot more for it because, especially if I make a cork crossbody strap, they're quite expensive. Anyway, I've got my connector here. The line, as I mentioned, is down the center. I'm going to take my dual strap connector, and on this very bottom rung there, I am going to put that against the inside of my strap connector. So this is, yeah, that's where the line is. So I'm going to fold it over, and I'm going to put a clip in it just to hold it in place. So then I'm going to take the other end and fold it up. And if you notice, I don't have them right in the center. So I did not fold it so that it's exactly 1/2 and 1/2. So this line here is down below the center a bit. And I do it like this, and it was recommended in the pattern to do it like this so that we're not punching a hole for a rivet right in that join. So I'm going to clip it and put a clip on the other side. I usually go ahead and do all of them at once, but I'm going to just work on one first and then I'll do the other ones off camera. So pretend I've got them all done. So the next thing I'm going to do is take a little bit of my 1/2-inch double-sided tape, and I'm just going to cut a little bit off. Again, this is the really sticky leather tape. I don't want it in my seam. So I'm going to move my clips over to the edge because it's going to pop open if I don't. And I'm going to put this in the center over top of that join and in the center of the connector. Now I can take the clips off. I'm going to grab one of my front panel pieces, and I have marked, I'm going to put it upside down so I can see. I have marked in a certain amount from the edge and down from the top. Now I follow the measurements in the pattern for, I think it's step number 18, where it says attaching the triangle strap anchors. These are not triangle strap anchors, but the more I made this pattern, the more I found that that was the measurement for the placement that I preferred to have my connectors. Now I've got them marked already. I've got it in my chalk mark. I took the paper backing off of my double-sided tape. I'm going to fold my hardware out of the way because I want to match this edge up with the top of the line, and I want to match this edge. So for me, it's the top edge is towards me and the left edge is the one that's going to go. So there's my mark. So I'm going to put top edge across the top and then the edge to my left along that long line down the side. So I think I've got that, and it'll stay there. I find it stays there as long as I'm taking it to the machine and I'm going to start stitching it on within reason. Like I can get them all on and then I start stitching them on. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to do the other connectors and then we will turn around and sew them on. It's time to stitch our connectors on. Now before I do, I realized I said to put them on the outside of this. So I marked my lines and then I said to put it on the outside. As long as you keep all your connectors consistent, it shouldn't matter. I just realized as I was putting on the other ones that I want them on the inside. So I want to make sure that this side of my connector is a certain amount away from here and the top of the connector is a certain amount away from the top edge. So this is the top edge, this is the bottom edge with the cutout. So I luckily figured it out and fixed it. So now I'm going to turn this around. I like to start when I put these connectors on right underneath the hardware. This way I can sew across and then down and around and up. And I know then how far away from my hardware I can get. Because by putting it down here, I feel how tight it is. I like to do it this way first. You can start on a side, any side you want. I also backstitch along here, so I will come across, down, over, up, and then back and forth a couple times. So I've got it set on a 5-stitch length. So I'm going to just put my needle down and I will backstitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. So here we go. And I want to get it within a certain tolerance to the edge, usually about 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to turn it so that I'm heading backwards. I'm pushing down my reverse lever and I'm going back 1, 2, 3 stitches. Being on a 5-stitch length, that should be enough to get me to clear my hardware. So I'm going to continue on now. All right, so I'm going to trim up my threads and I pull to try and pop any through to the back that I can, because now I will take my lighter and then melt it down and push on it and it kind of creates a little hard knot. So I'll go ahead and do the other one. So I have this tool here and I use it for marking rivets. It's a rivet placement ruler, really. It says strap marker. So what I'm going to do is just turn this to the side. I'm going to basically measure up so it fits. This one is the 1 inch, so it fits nice on here. So I'm just going to match one of the lines across here and then I'm going to go up and put a mark and then put a mark in the second spot that I want. And this just keeps them even in the center and evenly spaced. And I'm just using my silver marking pen so I can see it. I'm going to set that aside. Now I will take it over to my hole punch and I'm going to punch those holes. All right, holes have been punched and they went all the way through so you can see them there. So now I'm just going to grab, this is how I store my rivets. So I'm just going to take out, so there's 4 on this side and then there'll be 4 on the other side. So I'm taking out 4. Now because this already has the Decaville light in behind, I have in the past put extra, but I'm not sure it's really needed. I don't think they're going to pull through. You don't have to put rivets in. I just really like the look of them. If you would rather have it plain, that's completely up to you. So these are double cap rivets. So I've got the cap with the post and then just a cap on the other side. I usually like to take the cap and post and stick it through the front. I've used a 2mm punch, so it is a little tight. So I'll put them in these 4 holes. And now I'm going to flip this panel over and I'm going to grab the caps and I'm going to just pop a cap onto each of them. They don't always pop. So there, I've got all 4 of them on. I'm just going to turn around to my rivet. So I have 2 presses. One I have for punching the holes and the other one I have for setting rivets and other things. So I'm just going to turn around and do that. So this is what it looks like with the rivets on the handles. So all nice and on. It should be secure. Both the stitches should be secure as well as the rivets. So now I'm going to do the other one off camera and set these aside and we can move on to the next step. All right, I have a couple more things I'm going to do with the exterior panels before I set them aside to work with them later. The first thing I did was I found the center. I'm going to be adding labels. So I'm going to be adding my cork label, and then I'm usually use a bag tag that says limited edition, but I don't have one in a rainbow color. So this one is just says handcrafted, and I'm going to put it down here. So the first thing I've marked center here. I like putting my cork label right between the handles in line with the bottom. So I have marked a line across and found the center. So I have also marked the center of my cork label, put a little bit of double-sided tape on the back, peel the backing off, and then I am going to stick it along that line, matching the center marks. And I will stitch this on at the machine. You don't need to see me stitch this on, but that's where it's going to be, and I just stitch it around. And I usually stitch it on with a 3.5 stitch length, because then I get into the corners. I've just found it gives me a nicer box around with the 3.5 stitch length. So with this other piece down here, the handcrafted, it's got the prongs, I guess, here that we want to, it'll stick in like this, and then we will wrap it around this at the back. So I've got line here, so I usually end up putting it in line, try and get it in line with my handles. So I've marked a line here, and sometimes it's over, sometimes it's the prong that's in line, and I think I may, because it's a big label. My tags are usually, for the limited edition, are usually smaller, so I may just put this over, hang it over a bit off that line, but I'd like to put it up from the bottom so that it's not too close to the bottom, because this is all going to get folded under. This will be the side of the bag. This will be the front. This part wraps around to the side. This is the front. And I also don't want it to get hidden in the bottom of the bag. So this part here will get stitched to the base, and then a bit of it will curve around. So this will be a good spot so that we can see it. It's lower on the bag. It's not going to end up in the sides. I've got my line right here. I'm going to take my washer, figure out which ones I need. So it looks like I need the inside ones. There's 2 sets of holes, and it looks like I'm going to need the inside holes. So I'm going to place this washer on my piece. I'm lining up the bottom, and I am lining up the line from here that I made to the inside hole of this washer. So I'm just going to mark the other side. So these are the 2 marks that I want to cut into. I'm going to place my cutting mat underneath, and I have it's a craft knife, and mine just happens to be Cricut brand, but any craft knife will work. So I'm just going to go in, and I'm going to start at the top, and I have to push down to make sure it goes through everything. There's a layer of the canvas, a layer of the woven interfacing, and some Decaville light. So I have to make sure I get through all of that. So I'm now going to cut the other side and make sure I've gone through. Take my bag label, and I'm going to stick it in the holes that I just created. Flip the bag over, and I'm going to push the washer down, and I'm just going to bend the prongs out, and I'm going to kind of push it down. You could probably bang it down with a mallet or something, but I'm just going to press it over with the end of my Japanese hole punch. Take some duct tape, make sure it's long enough, grab my scissors and put it over. I'm going to flip it over and push it down from this side because I don't want it to pucker there. So after, I'm going to go through and try and take off these marks as much as possible. I still have the ones from up here to take. I will do that off camera, but there we go. You can go ahead if you're doing a stitch on label and stitch it on. I'll do it off camera, and then these can be set aside for a few minutes. Now we're going to work on putting the purse feet in the bottom panel of the bag. So as I mentioned in the opening, I have marked all my spots where I want my purse feet. And I have this Japanese hole punch. I think I've got a 2mm die in it, and I'm going to use it to punch out these holes. So I have a mat under my base piece, and I am going to center the punch over the mark I've made, basically the crosshairs, and then I am going to push down. And that one actually went through the first time. They don't always go. Sometimes you have to go a couple times. But I'm going to go and do that for all 5 holes. All of them went through. So now I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to turn around to the machine and do a stitch, nice stitch line all the way around each side. So I'll go and do that, and then we will install our purse feet. I'm going to stitch in just so that it runs a nice little stitch around. It looks like top stitching from the outside, but in a way it's actually kind of holding the Decaville Heavy on, just in case I didn't get it fused enough. So I'm going to do that, and then we can install our purse feet. So I know how far, I've got my measurement marked. I know how far in I want, and I'm going to start partway through the bottom, and then I will come around and back stitch. You can pull through if you want. I'm on a 5 stitch length, so I'll go all the way around all 4 sides. And I'm just going to pause here. I forgot to mark my pivot points in the corner, so I will just pause the camera, mark my points, and then go back to sewing. I've marked my pivot points, and now I'm going to continue and pivot at the points that I've marked and go all the way around. So it just stitches a little bit inside the Decaville Heavy so that it holds it on a little bit better too. And it looks good. If you can see it, it looks good from the other side. So I'm going to grab my purse feet. I have 5 of them, and I should have 5 washers. So I'm just going to do these here. So the other thing I'm grabbing is my duct tape. So I'm going to take one of my purse feet, and I'm going to stick it one in each of the holes. So all the way around, and then one in the center. All right, flip it over. I'm going to take a washer. I'm going to work on this one, and I'll put it over the posts. These ones actually split, so I'm going to split them and I push them open. I'm going to put one on each, and then I'm going to split them all open as well. I'm going to grab some of my duct tape, cut off a piece, and then I put it over the feet so they don't stick out and rub against the lining. And I will do this for the other 4 as well. Time to move on to the slip pocket. So I've got my 2 pieces of for the slip pocket here. I've got my OtterTex waterproof canvas, and I have my Mickey pumpkin fabric. So I'm going to take them and I'm going to place them right sides together. I am lining up the bottom edge. I have marked this as the top edge because along the top edge we are going to put our cork. So along the bottom edge for now, I'm going to put some clips in it, but I'm going to just stitch along this bottom edge. Then I will press it right sides out and we will add this on. Stitching up the bottom of the slip pocket. So I'm going to put mine to 3.5 stitch length, and then I am just going to stitch across about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. Since this was something I added, it's not part of the pattern that I could see, I can give you that information. So back stitching beginning in the end of the seam. So I'm going to take it to the iron, and I'm going to iron these so that they have a nice flat edge along the bottom. Just because I can iron them, I'm going to. So I'll be back. So I'm back from the iron. I've also basted this across the top just to hold it in place while we apply the accent. I'm going to try to do this here, but I may have to turn around and do it at the table. But for now, I'm just going to try here. So I have the center line. You can see the center line there. And I have tape on either side. This is the actual Wash Away Wonder tape that I put in. So I'm going to take one paper backing off of one of the pieces of tape, and I'm going to place this piece down so that it is close to the edge, or close to that line, but not right on it. So we want to make sure that we have enough room to fold this over. Paper backing off, and this should be about the same length as the pocket piece. So I'm just going to try and get it where I want it in relation to the line that I drew. And I put the back down first. So it's not great. I'm just going to go off and adjust it. I think I've got it a little bit better. When we do these pockets, we want this accent piece, we want a little more on the back side than we do on the front, because I'm going to be top stitching it from the front. And if I have a little more on the back than the front, then I will be able to stitch along and I will catch both sides. So I want to fold it over as close as possible. So I'm going to start in the center and I am going to try and line it up with the back. Grab some of my hair clips and clip it down. And I'll work my way out to one side and then the other. I'm going to turn this sideways this way and I'm going to top stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from this edge. So the inside edge all the way down. And being that the sides will be in the seam, these edges will be in the seam, I'm going to backstitch. And I am on a 5-stitch length. There we go. We've got this pocket ready to go on the lining. Time to add the slip pocket to the lining panel if you are planning to do this. Looking through the instructions yet again, I do not see where the instructions for this are given anywhere. So I will give you the instructions that I do. So I have marked my centers, not that you really need it if you've made your slip pocket the same width as the pattern piece. But I've also measured up 1 inch from this edge and marked a line all the way across. Now I don't need to find the center of this panel quite yet because I'm just going to put it along that line and I'm going to put some clips in it. You can put whatever clips you want. I kind of like the flat ones for this. And I'm trying to keep it lined up along that line. So what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to baste along the sides. I'm going to top stitch across the bottom and baste up the sides. Then I'm going to measure in because this side comes around. I know in Lauren's videos she has closed off this part of the pocket. I don't. I leave it in case somebody wants to use it as a pen pocket, but I do still fold it in to figure out approximately where I want to put the seam. So I fold it over about approximately the seam allowance here and say that this is where I kind of want to put a seam. So I'm going to just gently mark stuff in. I will use a ruler after, but I'll do the same thing for the other side. Again, in folding it over so that this piece down here is approximately the seam allowance for the pattern, and then crease it. And then the other thing I will do, and I marked my lines off camera, and then I will also mark a line right down the center. Let's stitch on this slip pocket. So as I mentioned, I'm going to baste down the side, stitch across the bottom here, go up the other side, then I will sew these center lines. Now I baste and I top stitch with a 5, but I do these at about a 4. Just gives a little extra stitching in there so it's a little bit stronger. You can do it at whatever you want. That's just what I do. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that, and I'll speed up the video at this point. Now that I've got those stitched on, I don't know if you can see all my lines, I'm going to take my silver marking pen. So I've got my stitch line here, and I want to be above the stitch line towards the folded edge, but I'm just going to eyeball where I want to put the rivet. So you can see the mark right there. So I'm going to do that for all of them. Now I'm going to turn around to my hole punch, and I'm going to punch out the holes, and then we're going to put some rivets in. I have the holes punched. I also have 3 rivets here. I have 3 little pieces of Decaville Heavy. I like to save my scraps so that I can use it to reinforce things like this. So I'm going to just go and punch a hole in the center of this. Got the holes. I'm going to take one of each. So these are double cap rivets. I think I mentioned it before. So cap, post, and then cap. I'm going to stick the cap and post through the hole. Now I'm going to take all these off, flip it over, make sure they're in, and then take one of these Decaville Heavy pieces, put it over the back, and then snap on the other cap. And now I'm going to, off camera, take it to behind me is my actual rivet press to set these. And I'm going to set these. And then we can set it aside and move on to the next step. Now we're going to work on the zipper pocket. So I have grabbed the large lining, the lining with the long piece on it. I have my 2 pocket pieces. I have a zipper. I have my zipper overlay, and I have my Made with Magic fabric label. First thing I want to do before I get anything stuck onto it is I'm just going to quickly mark the center of my overlay. So my overlay, I've used the overlay from another pattern, the roundness of the overlay from another pattern. I have just cut it down to fit this pocket. I've already folded in half and found my center and snipped the center, but I didn't put a mark down. So it's easier when I have a line here that I can match up to. So I'm going to turn my large piece sideways. Oh, I'm also going to flip this over and put some double-sided tape. Now I like using Wash Away Wonder Tape or this one because it's easier to remove. This is supposed to be Wash Away Wonder Tape, but I found out in the last video I did that it does not wash away. I'm just putting this on. It's just for temporary. I'm going to peel it off once we get this overlay sewn on. So there's my center. I have already taken my lighter and burned off whatever little fluff, so I thought I did. So I've got a few more little fluffs. I just take it and go around the outside like this. I'm going to take the paper backing off of the tape. I'm going to actually do both sides. And then I'm going to lay the zipper overlay down, matching up the center mark. And then I've got a line so far down from the top there. So I'm just going to gently press that down. This is where I want my Made with Magic label to go. I've got my actual Wash Away Wonder Tape here. I'm just going to put a little bit, actually I'm going to put a little bit on here so that it'll stick to the overlay so that I can move things around. I'm just guessing at how far it needs to be away. So I can move this piece around and not lose the tag. Now that we've got this on, I'm going to take it to the machine, put the needle down and stitch all the way around the outside. The other thing, so set that aside for a second. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my pieces. So I've just grabbed the short piece. It doesn't really matter. Mine aren't directional, so I don't have to worry about it as much. But if you are using directional fabric, the shorter piece is the front piece. And this line that I'm stitching it on right now is going to be the top. So make sure you've got your design going the right way. I will grab some of my other Wonder Clips and put them along the edge. And we're going to just stitch this along this edge. All right, ready to stitch on the overlay. As I mentioned, I'm going to start down in here. And I will be back stitching in this area. If you don't want to back stitch, you want to pull your thread through, go ahead, make sure you leave your tails long enough. So I'm going to come here, and again I'm doing about 1/8 of an inch away from the outside edge. So there's a lot of orange going on right here, but I am on the outside edge. I have it on a 5 stitch length. Actually, I'm going to change it to a 4 stitch length so I can get a better curve around here. It's a little longer than the 3.5, but it's not so long. Like the 5 tends to make more sharp corners here where a smaller stitch length will get around the curve. So anyways, I'm back stitching again, as I mentioned, and I'm on a 4. All right, so I've got this on here now. So I'm going to set this one aside for a sec because we're still working on the zipper pocket. I'm just moving on to the lining of the zipper pocket. So I've got, as I showed you before, I've got this all lined up. I'm going to put it under my needle and I'm trying to run my edge of my presser foot along the edge of the teeth all the way along. And I'm going to put this one at a 3.5 because we're not basting and then stitching. This is it. So back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. Trying not to pull on, and because you pull on your zipper, you can end up twisting it. I'm just trying to keep it in line with this top edge. So if you look at this and you think it looks wrong, it isn't. So I've got my OtterTex waterproof canvas right side up and my zipper right side up. I should have gone over this before when I was putting it down. So when we go like this, fold it back like this, you've got the outside of the zipper. So say this is the outside, the zipper will peek through here. And then on the inside of the zipper, we've got the right side of the fabric. So this is what we want after we're done stitching it on and folding it back on itself. That is how we want it to be. So I'm just going to grab the other piece. Now again, this would be the back. So I'm going to be stitching it to what would be the top of the back because it's going to hang this way inside of the bag. So if you've got directional fabric, make sure that you're stitching it onto the top. We're also going to match this long edge along the zipper, and I'll put a clip in it. And I'm also going to match along this edge of the pocket piece. And I'm actually going to clip it, even though we're not sewing there. I'm going to clip it in a couple spots. Go ahead and stitch this on, just like we did the other one. All right, all the clips are out. Now I'm going to actually push this one away from the zipper as well, even though when we sew up the pocket, it will be hanging down flat in the back. We can't sew around the zipper opening. We can't sew around the inside of that with the back part down. So I'm going to probably go to the iron and press this away, although I can finger press OtterTex waterproof canvas. I do kind of like it when it's pressed properly. So I'm going to take it to the iron and I'm going to press that out properly. We want the zipper tape to be flat, just like that. And then we want these folded away from the teeth, either panel folded away from the teeth. So I'm going to go do that. Back from the iron. So I've got these ironed pretty flat. So now I need to grab my lining zipper. So I decided I'm going to use this one for inside in the lining. So we've got this package here, and we've got the front one is this one is the front and the longer one is the back. So you got to determine which way you like your zippers closing. I like mine closing to the left, which means I have to start putting it on the right. So having a look at my zipper here, we're going to be separating it so I can put the zipper slider on, but I need to take a look. So I've got it, it's all nice and straight right now, and I want to keep it that way. So nylon coil, teeth of the nylon coil alternate. So I've got this one is on the left, then right, then left, right. And that's how it joins together. So to get it so that it's straight again, I want to make sure I have one coil on the top on the left and one then on the right, back and forth. So I'm going to separate my zipper. I tend to put mine on the side that was the highest first. I don't think it really matters. I'm going to take the other one, kind of bend it in and pull. I'm pulling back and pushing up on this zipper slider at the same time as I'm putting it in till it's like fairly even. Then I'm going to push on the butt end of the zipper and pop it on, and then I'm going to check. So I have this coil here is, I've got it in the right order, the way it was. The other way you can tell that you've got it on correctly is that this center bar and the nose of the zipper slider will be pointing down towards the center of the coils or the teeth. And the other thing to look for to show you is there's bulges on either side. When the zipper slider comes through, the head of the zipper slider comes through, it will cause a bulge. If you have it off a bit, it will bulge more on one side. Say you have it off on this side, so this side will bulge more than the other, but they're pretty even and it's pointing down the center of the teeth. So I think that's good. So I'm just going to put it in the center. So I'm just going to put this one aside for now. And we're going to work on this. So we stitched her all around the outside. Now we've got to cut away the stuff for the inside. I'm just going to fold this in sort of in half. I want it fairly even along this side because I don't want a really weird, but we're cutting this part out. Don't cut into your overlay, just cut into your lining panel. So I've got it here. I may have to put it under my foot. So now we want to separate the overlay. Remember, there was some double-sided tape in there. I'm going to pull it away from the lining. And I want to get my scissors in up here, up to within 1/8 of an inch of this seam. It doesn't really matter how far in you go, as long as you're further in than this edge. So you can cut it back to like 1/4 of an inch, or you can, I like to take it all the way back. So the other thing I'm going to do is try and flip this out and reach in here and try and pull off my double-sided tape. See, I've got a hold of it, and I'm just going to try and pull it away from the overlay out both ways. So I didn't put any across the ends because I planned on taking this out. So it's not staying in there. There we go. I've got the top piece off. So now I'm going to try to cut along this edge. This is the top, so it should be okay. There shouldn't be anything in the way. I'm going to curve around and come down. Now we've got more double-sided tape here, so I'm going to try and take this piece off as well. There we go. Got the double-sided tape off. So now I'm just going to put this back under and continue to cut around the overlay. Not cutting my stitches at all. And the other thing I got to watch out for is as I come down here, I have to make sure that I'm not cutting my, I've got my tag in there, my woven label. So I don't want to cut it. So I'm just going to make my way around it. All right, there we go, all cut out. As I mentioned, as long as it's not anywhere near the opening, you cut it back enough and you should be good. You don't want to get it too close to the seam line, because if you are using a woven fabric for your lining, you could end up fraying. Okay, so now we have our lining panel with our overlay, and we have our zipper pocket. We need to put this inside of this. So for now, I'm just going to leave this upside down. I'm laying out my zipper pocket with the small end, the small side towards me, because this is the front of the pocket. It'll be what's against the lining, and this is the back. So it hangs down longer than the other one. So I'm going to flip it out like that. And I've got my zipper going towards the left. That's the way we put it in. That's the way I'm going to leave it. So I'm going to take, this is a 1/4 inch tape. It's not quite as sticky as the sticky tape from Wawak, but it is still pretty sticky. And I'm going to put it along the edge, right along the very edge of the zipper tape. I want to keep it out of my sewing line. I'm going to do that on the other side. Go. It was a little harder on this side because the zipper tape wants to stick up. So I'm going to put my zipper slider in line here. I am going to take the piece of tape, or the backing off of the piece of tape on the bottom, take my lining panel, and I want to center the pocket in this opening. So probably about there. And I'm going to try and put it down over top of the zipper like this, and I want to get it as lined up as I can. Oh, I guess make sure your tape is stuck to your zipper before doing this. Really stuck down so it doesn't come up on your lining panel when you need to reposition. So just trying to stick it down more and not have it stick to me. All right, try this again. So I want it centered as much as possible, and I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to just go off camera for a minute to make sure that I've got it centered. All right, I think I've got it pretty good. So now I'm going to flip the top part back, take the backing off of the tape on the side. Well, make sure it's really stuck to the zipper this time. Take the paper off, paper backing off, and then try to stick this down evenly away from the zipper coils. So I think that's probably pretty good. It's good enough. So now I'm going to go around to the machine and we're going to stitch this on. All right, let's sew this zipper pocket into the lining panel. So I've got my pocket piece. I've got it opened up, so there's the front part and there's the back part of it. We don't want it all down. You want to make sure you've got it spread out like this so that we don't end up sewing it closed. So I've got I'm putting my foot down right, there's my slider, just down from the slider. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go around, and once I get to here, I'm going to move the slider out of the way, continue on and finish off. And I do back stitch. I do go a little further over, so I will go a little further over, so not all my back stitches are in one tiny couple stitches. I overlap them a bit so that they're not all in one spot. Anyways, I'm on a 4 because that's what we stitched this on with before, so I'm going to try and keep my stitches fairly even. Needle down, and I will do as I just said and go all the way around, moving the zipper pull out of the way as I need to. All right, so a couple things when you're going around the corners. Make sure that you've got your needle down to pivot. I had a problem, I think, when I was coming around this side here. I think my zipper slider was getting caught on the edge of the table. While I generally like my cylinder arm machine, this table business is very annoying. I will at some point do a little review on my machine for you, but right now this is what I have. So I took it back, so it got caught up, I don't know, somewhere in here, and I took it back so that I could have a tail long enough that I could use to tie. And I also put my needle down right in the spot where I'm like right in the spot of the last stitch to come up and across. And now I'm going to pull this thread to the back. I will tie it all off on the back and then melt down my stitches. Now we need to close up, well, finish what we need to do on this pocket. So the front part and the back part are 2 different lengths, and depending on how you sew on your zipper up top makes a difference on how much you have left over down here. It's not perfect, but it's about I would say quarter to 3/8 of an inch, and it's not bad. So I laid it down on my table and flattened everything out. I put a couple clips in it to hold it, and then I just drew a line across. You can just go and cut, and I have done that in the past. I just thought I would draw the line this time, since I was at the table when I did it. Normally I'm here at the machine. So just cut off that extra little bit, and now we're going to sew up the sides. We need to peel back the lining from the zipper pocket pieces, and we're going to, I'm just changing it to 3.5. We're going to sew down the side. When we get to the bottom, I am going to fold up the ends like that before I stitch, and then stitch over the fold. This will help us have a nice clean line for when we go to finish the pocket. Now we're not birthing through the pocket. We're going to birth through the bottom of the bag, but we're then going to pull the bottom of the bag through this pocket to finish it off. We need to leave this pocket open. You can go and finish this pocket and then, birth it through the bottom of the bag, but then you're going to have to do the bottom of the bag a little differently. I'm leaving the whole one side of the bag open in the lining. There's not going to, it's not going to be joined at all. And so this part here on the bag will not be joined when we go to match it up. This part here, so this is that long part that's actually like the base. We will not be joining this part up to the other piece until we're going to close the lining. We will then join it and then box the corners. So if you don't want to leave the pocket open to pull the lining through to close it up, then you're going to have to find a different way of closing up the lining. Don't follow what I'm going to do if you plan on not leaving this open. All right, so here we go, and try not to stitch on your lining panel pieces. So back stitch beginning in the end of the seam, and then I'll do it on the same on the other side. Now I'm going to grab my scissors and my lighter, and I am going to trim off the excess zipper tape. I usually cut mine a little bit longer for this pocket than it needs to be, just so I have room to, if I happen to go over a bit. If I happen to not get these pocket panels even, then I have wiggle room. The other thing I want to do with the bottom side here is I'm going to, where this folds back, where the edge of the fabric is, I'm just going to snip above it to the stitch line, but not through. See, we've got this. So this allows the fabric to, this part stay flat and this part just fold back on itself, and you don't get a big huge lump. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. And again, not snipping my threads. I'm going to open the bottom and then fold it back on itself. So there we go. Put a couple clips in, and this will just, you can, if you've got something you can iron. So if you've got quilting cotton, doing this, I would put some fray check on those spots because it could fray. Being that I'm using waterproof canvas, I don't need to, but if you're using something that'll fray, might be a good idea to fray check those edges. So there we go, that is the lining panel. Set this aside for now and we'll move on to the next step. Time to put our main zipper together. So I've got my longer piece here, and I'm going to look at the ends here because I have to put my zipper slider on first. So I'm going to have a look at the ends and see what order the coils are in. Just melt that a bit. Okay, so now I see that the left is on the top, so I'm going to separate my zipper, slip on the slider on the one side, slip it on the other, and have a look. Does it look fairly even? If not, just move it a bit, and then I push it down so that it kind of pops on, and then I have a look. And I see here that I have gotten it, see that I have gotten it too far. It's a little hard to see because it's black. But I should have left, right, and I've got left, left, right. So I'll have a look. You can see on this one that there is more of a bulge down here than there is up top. And this isn't really pointing straight at the teeth, it's kind of pointing down. So that, with those three things, I'm able to tell that it's not on properly. So I'm just going to slide it back. Sometimes it's easier to do this than others. This is a very heavy pull. So I'm going to slip it back, and I'm going to try and hold the slider on while I pull back this side just once. And there we go. Now I'm going to push the butt on. Did I get it? No, still didn't get it. So I must have moved it after. Try it again. There, try that. And there I got it. So left, right. And then you can have a look at this and you can see that it's not bulging towards the top or bottom one any more than the other, and the nose is pointing straight down the teeth. So I would say I have this pull on correctly. So I'm just going to get in the center for now. I'm going to grab my little tab pieces. Now, I don't remember exactly how the pattern is written, but I have a feeling it's just clip it over the end here like that and stitch it. I used to do that with my bags, but I have had to fix zippers, so take the bag apart and fix them. So now I do them differently. I actually will put my zipper tab down at the end. Just move this down a little bit more so it doesn't make a noise. I try and match it up at the end, but right now I'm matching it more with the zipper tape than the teeth, I can trim off the teeth, and I'm just going to kind of clip it in two places. I like clipping on the top to the side because I'm going to start here and I'm going to stitch. So I put it on one side and then down on the other. Flip it over, take this, put it face down. This time it's more in line with the teeth. So wherever I can evenly spread, you know, put this down, I will do this. All right, so there we go. We've got it on. I'm going to now stitch it on with, I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance for this, and I stitch it on with a 3.5 stitch length. So back to 3.5, and I backstitch at the beginning and the end of the seam, and I also backstitch over the zipper teeth. And if you need help getting up on the teeth, you can, I don't know, I usually push it with the butt end of my tweezers. That was a little more than I normally do. I normally just backstitch at the beginning and the end and then over the teeth, but I guess I really want to reinforce it this time. All right, so now I'm going to take it and fold it back and then fold it back on itself again. So this is what we've got on the back side. From the side, that's what it looks like, and then from the front. And I'm just going to put a clip down here, and I'm going to top stitch along this inside edge, 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And I'm going to put it on a 5. Sometimes I leave it on a 3, sometimes I put it on a 4, this time I'm putting it on a 5. And I'm just going to back stitch, beginning and the end. I'm not going to back stitch here because you'll be able to see it, and the reinforcing that we did before should be enough to keep it. The one thing with this, the method of adding tabs on either end, you need to make sure that your zipper is the correct length, because it needs to be able to fit across the top of the panel. So make sure that you cut it to the correct length. I would not cut this one longer. Just, you know, like we did for the pocket, I cut mine a little bit longer than it needed to be. I don't do that for here because it needs to fit exactly, or you're not going to be able to close up the sides very well. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. And this time, since I have excess here, I am going to cut off the excess and then melt it on the zipper tape. So my zipper tabs, I believe, are a different size to the ones in the pattern. I do the width of the tape by 1.5 inches. I probably don't need to, so I'm cutting off about 1/4 of an inch. When I do it, it just gives me room because it's not always consistently 1/4 inch I'm cutting off. Sometimes it ends up being a little bit more. The width of the zipper by, I do 1.5 inches for each of them. So now I've got both ends on. I'm going to match up the ends, and I am folding with the coils. I find it easier to fold with the coils sticking out. And I'm just going to take my little, I think I'll just use the chalk one, see if it'll mark. Yeah, it's not great, but I think I can see it well enough. So there's one side. At least the chalk will come off where the silver marking pen doesn't. So I'm actually marking both sides of the zipper tape. Let's start joining we've got all of our pieces. So I've got both exteriors done. I've got my base done. I've got my slip pocket on and my zipper pocket in. So now I want to start adding the zipper. So I have already snipped the centers on all of my pieces. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it. I just marked the zipper. So again, mark the center on the zipper. I am going to open up my zipper because of the way I'm going to stitch it on. This just keeps the slider out of the way. So now I want to find the center of my zipper tape and put it face down across the top of, I'm working with my front panel first. So I usually do this so that I get a really nice job on the front of the bag. So if I start struggling with the back of the bag, it's not going to be seen quite as much. So I find the centers, and now I'm going to match up my center of my zipper with the center of the panel and clip. So I have got this clipped on now. I am just going to go and baste this on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Here we go, basting this on. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on my thread. Looks like I'm getting low because it's starting to curl. Some people can hear it in their machine. I generally can't. So I just have to keep an eye on it. So I'm going to do this baste. I'm going to check my thread again, and then I'm going to be adding one of the lining pieces, but I'll go over that when I get there. All right, so that's basted on. I am going to take my lining piece. I like to have my slip pocket on the front. So I like having my zipper pocket at the back of the bag, because usually the back of the bag is towards my body. So I like having the zipper pocket there. Not sure it really matters. It might with the way we're going to do the closing of the bag, but it's completely up to you which way you want to do it. You can give it a try putting the zipper pocket on the front. This is just the way I like to do it. So I've got the exterior right side up, the zipper right side down. The way I have to stitch it, I'm going to open my zipper all the way up. I'm going to put this panel piece, the lining panel piece on. Two things I'm going to do. I'm going to start by matching up the centers, but then I'm also going to look at the outside, because while the center's a good mark, it's not always right. Like if your zipper doesn't happen to end up centered on the front panel, you can really make it go off by just using the center. So I use the center. I also use the sides, and I can see that the sides, this panel is a little bit wider, so my exterior must have shrunk a bit when I applied the woven interfacing and the Decaville light. So yes, I want it centered, and this, yeah, I've got about the same on the other side. So having the centers marked is a good thing. Use that, but also keep an eye on how much overhang you have, because if you didn't get your zipper centered on the panel, like I said, it could end up being off. So I'm just going to put a couple more clips in it, since I'm going to sew it with the exterior side up so I can see what I've already sewn. I'm just going to put another clip. Okay, so I can see what I've already sewn. I'm going to stick it under my needle. I'm changing it to a 3.5 stitch length. I'm going to put it under my needle. Unfortunately, I'm lazy and I don't want to swap out my presser feet, so I'm just going to stitch it this way. And I have the line on top, or I have where I basted it on top, so that I can make sure I'm just inside of that as I go across. I want to keep a straight line. I want to keep it in line. Put my needle down, and I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. So I'm stopping now to move my zipper slider. I got most of the way down. I'm moving my slider back. It gets a little tricky when you've got the hardware for the handles in there, but it's doable. I've got my new bobbin in. I've set my stitch length to a 5. And I'm going to top stitch now. You can kind of see the crease here. When I do the top stitching, I'm only top stitching on the outside piece. So I put it lining side down, exterior side on the top. I've got my seam allowance going to my left, and now I want to bring just the exterior fabric to the left. I've ironed it because of my Decaville light in there. It just gives me a nicer finish. I can do it without, but I find my stitches end up not as nice. So there. So we're just going to top stitch on the exterior panel. We're not including the lining panel if you want to do it this way. If you want to bring your lining panel under and top stitch it all, that's up to you. I just really like the finish this gives me on this bag. Got my needle down 5 stitch length, and I'm just going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam, because that will be in the seam allowance, and come straight across. And there we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. So I'm going to take my back main piece and baste it on, then my lining, and then I'm going to top stitch. I'll do that one off camera and then we can move on. One thing I want to say before I move on, as I've attached this side of the zipper to the exterior, I've tried to center it on the panel, but I'm also trying to match up the sides because we want these, we don't, otherwise it'll be wonky. We don't want it to be wonky. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The other thing I'm going to do once I have added both lining panels is I'm going to take it to the iron and I'm going to press this edge. So while we've top stitched on the other side, I do still pull this away and press it so it's a nice crisp edge, or as crisp as waterproof canvas can get. I'm going to move the lining piece out of the way. So I'm just working with the exterior. We're going to be adding the base. So I need to add the base along here. So between these, sometimes it fits nicely, sometimes it's one's a little bigger than the other, but if you center it along that panel, or center it along this edge, then it should be fine. So I'm just going to match up the centers, grab my clips, and I'm going to start clipping. All right, since the exterior panel, we found this when we were adding on the lining piece. The exterior panel has shrunk a bit with the Decaville and the woven interfacing, so it does hang over here just a bit. It is a little bit smaller than the base panel, but that's fine. Like I said, just make sure it is centered. So I'm going to turn it around and we are going to sew at the full seam allowance. We haven't really had much with seam allowance yet, but this is where the seam allowance written in the pattern is important. So I'm going to put it on a 3.5 stitch length, and I am going to stitch back stitch beginning and end of the seam, and I'm going to start at one side and go all the way across. And with the feet on there, I find I sometimes have to prop it up like this so that I can get this seam lines even, or the seam or the side even. All right, so I don't remember if I said this. I've added it to the front panel, and as I mentioned before, I do know I mentioned it before, I'm working with the front panel first, and this is really what I need to focus on because I'm going to fold this back now, and I'm going to top stitch along here. The next, when I put the other side together, we're going to have to top stitch through the zipper opening. So I definitely will be showing you how I do that. But I do the front first so that I can get a really nice top stitch on this side because the second side isn't always the best. So I'm going to try to maneuver this under. I know I can put it in my machine the other way. I just find my feet aren't exactly centered, so I get a better top stitch if I follow this side of my foot as opposed to this side. So there's the center foot and then the two toes on the either side. The center foot is closer to the right side toe, so I get a better top stitch distance when I run that along. So that is why I end up maneuvering to top stitch into what looks like awkward positions. Anyway, so I've got my base on top and my lining or my main fabric underneath. I've got the seam allowance to the left, and now I'm just going to fold the base over the seam allowance to the left, and we're going to top stitch along this. So make sure I've got a 5 stitch length. Grab my threads and then just top stitch all the way along. I'm going to grab the base, and we've got the lining fabric going away, and I'm going to just add the base to the other side of the exterior panel, or the other exterior panel. All right, now comes the fun part. I've changed it to a 5 stitch length. I'm going to go through, I'm going to actually take off the clips off of my pocket. I'm gonna open up my zipper and have a look. So yeah, I like running my foot along it like this. So this is the way I want it. I'm going to work at trying to get my zipper, or get my zipper, get my presser foot in here. So I put it inside. So push the zipper as far away as I can, get it under my foot. So this is going to take some maneuvering. So we don't want to stitch on anything. We don't want to catch the slider in the under your needle. So it's a little awkward, but it does produce a nice result. So I'm going to put my needle down. I'm at a 5 stitch length already. Hold my threads, back stitch beginning and the end of the seam. Make sure your hardware all stays out of the way too. There we go. Trim off your threads. And now we have the bag. It's all stitched together, and I'm going to move around to the table view because this is just too small of an area to work. This is what we have. We have, it's all stitched in. I've got both sides on. Need to trim up all my threads. So yeah, it's a little tricky top stitching the base through that opening, but it is completely doable. If you have a domestic machine and you're using a walking foot, it may not be doable because the walking feet on domestic machines, if it's an accessory, not one of those domestics that has the built-in, I'm not even sure they're called walking feet. Mine doesn't have it. I have the additional attachment that came with my quilting machine that I put on, but it is so big, I'm not sure I would get in there. So like regular foot would get in there. Hopefully you have something that can get in to actually do the top stitching on the base, because it is a nice, it does keep these pieces fairly flat. We're going to now close up and box the exterior, and I'm going to clip along the lining. So looking at this, I want to, so we've got, there's the zipper there. I'm going to push the zipper towards the lining. So make it fold towards the lining, and then I'm going to match up the edges here. So where the joins here, I'm going to match those up because I want those to be even. Put this down, it works a little easier. So now I'm going to clip along the exterior. So we don't really have anything else we have to match up on this side. So I'm going to clip along the exterior all the way down, and I'm actually going to put a clip at the end here too. I sew these in a couple passes. So I'm going to go on the other side and do the same thing. So I'm going to fold the zipper towards the lining, and then I'm going to match up these seams. And I'm going to clip, so I've got them clipped 2 different ways. So I've got those facing up because I go through my machine and I'll put my needle down here and stitch up this side, flip it over, do that side, then I'll do these. I start here because I want these edges matched up. I don't care if I have to, I use more thread this way. It just looks, to me, it looks better when you have these edges matched up. So for me, it's more important that these edges are matched up than these down here. Mine happen to match up because I'm pretty consistent with my stitch seam allowance. But if you're hanging off of this, it can be trimmed back, but you really would like it to match up here. That makes it look really nice. So flipping this over, and I'm going to continue to clip down this side. Now, with the hardware, if you can get it, they're lying on top of each other, which is what we want. It does make it bulky, but we wanted them in the same spot on each side of the bag. It makes it hang nicely. So I'm just going to clip along the side. And if you notice, I am kind of folding this over a bit. It's fine. I will clip down either side as well. And these ones are off a little bit too. It's fine. So I'm going to put these upside down. All right. we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and I am going to stitch this up. Okay, as I mentioned, I'm going to be starting my stitches here. So I'll be putting my needle down here. I've got it set to a 3.5 stitch length, and I will back stitch here and at the end of the seam. And I'm just going to go down to here. And I will do the same thing on the outside of the other exterior. And we want the full seam allowance for this. All right, now I am going to flip this back over and I'm going to do big bag. I'm going to do down this side and I'm going to put my needle down in where I started the other seam. I'm going to put it right back down in there. I'm going to back stitch and then I'm going to continue down this side. I'm going to start off at the recommended seam allowance, but then I'm going to gradually come in a bit. I don't really measure how much I come in. I just want to make sure it is smaller than the main, but not too small. You want it to fit snugly in there. So that's why I do reduce it. So I might be 1/8 of an inch smaller by the time I get down to the bottom, but so needle down where I started before and then back stitch. And I'll do the same on the other side. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to start in about 1.5 inches above the end because I want to leave enough fabric down here so that I can open it up, butterfly the seam. And I'm going to cut this back to about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch. Till I get to about 1 inch to 1.5 inches away, and then I'm going to veer off like that. Now I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. Now we're going to box the corners. So I'm going to take my bag. I'm going to, this part of the seam that I did not cut out, I'm going to butterfly open and I'm going to finger press it like that. I'm going to fold over. I might have to stick my hand in, but I'm going to pop out the sides and fold it down so that it's all in line. Sometimes I have extra because, like I said, the exterior fabric was smaller than the cork. So yeah, this one is hanging over a bit and that's fine. We'll just trim it down after. I am going to clip it towards the bottom part because I'm going to be stitching along here because I want to make sure I get in between those seam lines but not over. I'm going to stitch this down. So I'm going to try and keep it out of the way of the camera. Fold it down fairly flat. And then I'm going to move it under, I don't know if you can see it any better. So right out here is the stitch line. I'm just going to come like tiniest bit in from that. And then I will stop the tiniest bit away from this one. And remember, I do have overhang, so I need to take that into account when I'm doing my seam allowance. I have it on a 3.5 stitch length. Right, now I'm going to go across it again, just 1 stitch length, I think, in from the other seam. So not even 1/8 of an inch, so more like a 1/16 of an inch. And yeah, making sure I don't go past that seam line. This just helps reinforce this corner a bit. So I'll do the other side off camera because you don't need to see it. But then the next thing I'm going to do is cut a bit out of here. So I'm not cutting straight across because then that would put a hole in. So I'm starting here by the edges of the seam allowance from the attaching the base. I'm just going to curve in and cut stuff out from here and then curve up. The only thing I might do here is trim a bit off of here. So we've got a little less in the seam allowance. Got both sides sewn of the exterior, and I've trimmed out the seam allowance. So now I'm going to turn the bag. So turning it through, leaving this open and turning it through makes it a lot easier. So I'm just going to stick my hand all the way to the end and push this end into my hand and try and grab it. And then pull on it. Try and pull it through. If you can get it inside of the lining pieces, it helps. Okay, so now we've got it mostly right side out. I'm going to be sticking my fingers in the corners here and trying to push out these corners. Hopefully we've got them nice and even. I'm going to grab my screwdriver and try and lift this corner, the tab in that corner, and then do the other side. Just for now, I'm going to tuck this in and see how it looks on the outside. Want to make sure if you press this, it does help. So pressing it before we stitch this all together. You can try and press it after. It's a little easier when it's all flat. All right, so we've got this. I'm just going to work on these edges a bit. All right, it is going to need another ironing, but for now, this is what we have. If we are done with turning the bag, which I think we are, I don't see anything that needs to be fixed. So check it over to make sure that nothing has puckered, nothing has gotten caught that shouldn't have gotten caught. You've got everything pressed out that you want pressed out. I'm going to open up the zipper, the interior zipper, and pull out the zipper lining. Okay, got that out. I'm going to reach my hand in and I'm looking for the lining pieces. So I've got that side and this one with the pocket, and I'm going to pull it through the zipper pocket lining. Depending on how you grab it, sometimes it's easier than others. There, we got most of it out. I'm going to, now, since I have put notches in my lining panels here, I don't know if you can see the notches, but I do have notches in them, and it makes it easier to line up at this point. So I'm just going to, I usually end up stitching with the long part, which is like the base and the bottom, and then the top part with just the seam allowance up. So I'm going to clip it that way. Now I'm going to take this around to the machine. I don't expect to get it perfectly flat. I will get one side under the machine like this, and then I will, as I'm stitching, this will curve because I can't get this whole thing out flat to stitch it all flat. All right, got it on a 3.5 stitch length. We're going to stitch this up with a little bit more than the recommended seam allowance. Because I did a little bit more on the sides, I'm going to do a little bit more on the bottom. I'm not sure it matters a huge amount, but yeah, so I'm going to start in one corner, back stitch, go all the way around and stop on the other. I'll probably fast forward this because the hardware on my table is making an awful noise. So here we go. All right, now we're going to want to box one of the corners. So I'm just going to, so I've got one side. I may end up sticking the other side in if I don't have enough room to pull this out, but I should be able to. I want the seam allowance to go back towards the base. So you've got one seam that we just sewed, and the other side of the box is just it's just been cut. There's our side seam here. So I'm going to open the side seam and finger press it. I'm going to fold my seam allowance of the seam I just sewed back into the center, towards the center, sort of like that. Put a clip. And again, I'm clipping towards the base so I can see where I need to start and stop my stitches. Now I'm trying to pull these sides apart, open up the seams again because it closed, and put another clip in it. And then I'm going to clip on this side. So that's what it looks like. It's hard to tell because it's jammed inside the bag, like inside the pocket, but this is what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stitch this, and then I will do the other side off camera. Need to get it under the needle and keep everything spread apart. I'm going to again do a little bit more than the seam allowance, but since this is so awkward, I'm not overly concerned about it. This would be a lot easier on a flat bed because right now everything's getting pulled off the edge of my table. Either caught on or pulled off. So I'm going to start on the one side. I still have 3.5 stitch length. And go all the way across. I'm going to grab, now that I've got that stitched from side to side, I'm going to just, again, I don't want to cut this fabric, so I'm just going to start in a bit, and because there's no join on the other side, I can cut straight across. Now I'll do the other one off camera and we can move on to the next step. I've got the other side stitched. The one thing I meant to say is for this seam, on this side we folded it, we want both to go towards the center so that this seam here is all folded towards the center. We don't want that seam to get twisted. Now I'm going to take this pocket and I'm going to, or take the lining and shove it back down inside the pocket. And go off, that's how I'm doing it, shoving it back down. I'm just going to go off camera briefly to make sure it gets all in there. All right, I'm back and we have this zipper pocket to close up now. Try and bring it in front of me. So I'm just going to, with the way we stitching over the fold and we popped it out, all I have to do now is stick my fingers in either side and then fold it over like that. I'm going to grab I like my flat clips for this, and I'm going to put my clip in it. And I'll just keep going over, and we should have a fairly even seam allowance now tucked inside of the pocket. Now I'm going to, I use a 3.5 stitch length. Sometimes I use others, just depends really on what my machine's on, but 3.5 will stitch this up nice and tight. And we don't want anything to pop in the bottom of the pocket here, so people lose stuff into the bottom of their bag. So I'm going to back stitch beginning and the end of the seam. All right, now we can just put this back inside the pocket. I'm not going to show that on camera. When we come back, we will be installing the handles. So I've stuck the pocket back inside, and this is where we are. It's time to add the handles on. So I've gone through, and with one, I just slipped my handles. I'll try and lie this maybe that way. Hopefully this works. So I took my handle, I slipped it in so that my right side of my handle is flat against my connector. So up and over that little bar, and then I folded it back as much as I wanted. My first mark, I marked about ½ inch up from the edge. So I folded it over as much as I wanted it, stuck my pen, silver marking pen in, marked my spot, and I'm using my rotary cutter to punch, or rotary punch, to punch out the hole. So I've done one side. So I figured out, using my strap marker, where I need to line it up, because there's little lines on here. So where I need to line it up, where my first hole goes, where my second hole goes. So I've marked it again, and I'm marking on the wrong side of my strap. The other thing I do with my strap, I'm just going to slip this in quickly. So this isn't even, but this is just, I want to show you that when it's down, I have that edge where it's the join. So there's the folded edge on one side and then the join edge on the other. So I put it on with the join edges to the outside. So when somebody's carrying it, the folded edge is what's up. So I don't know if it really matters. That is just the way I do it. So yeah, I make sure that I've got my wrong side because I can see the difference in my stitches. I don't know if anybody else will really notice or not. But I want my nice side up. I want to put my join side to the outside of the hardware, and I want the folded side to the inside. Just, it looks nice then when it's being carried. So I'm taking this off. You can decide how far up on the strap you want yours to go. So I'm just going to mark the wrong side of this with my tool. Now this is, I'm using the 1-inch strap marker, but these are 3/4 inch straps. So I have to kind of guess at where the center of my strap is, and my pen is running out of ink. All right, take my rotary punch, and then I'm just going to punch the 2 holes. All right, got them all punched. Going to set that aside. Now I'm going to grab some rivets. So I need 2 per side, so 4 total. Just close them up so I don't spill them. All right, so now, like I said, I want to have the join side out. So this is the one I'll put on the other side. So this is the one I was working with. And I'll put it, actually I'm going to work on the back first, and I can use this strap for the front. So again, right side to right side, I'm going to go up through the underneath and then over the bar, through the loop on these, it'll be through the loop and then back on itself. Since I already have the holes punched in, I can put in my rivet and then all the way through, and I can pop my cap on. And it didn't snap, but I could feel it smush in place. So making sure that I don't get it twisted, I bring it out. If you can see, bring it out and around. Again, I'm going to put right side to right side on the connector, up through the bottom, and then out through the top, in my case with the loop. And there we go. So now I'm going to do the other side quickly. I'm going to set them, the rivets, and then we'll be all done. I got the handles all attached, and there we go. This is the Lauren Tote by Lauren at Mormino. This is also her fabric. Don't know if it's still available or not. I've tried to follow the pattern. The pattern has a lot of variety, a lot of options. It does talk about a slip pocket, but I don't see the instructions for the slip pocket. So it is a slightly modified version of Lauren's pattern. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you could like and subscribe, that would be amazing. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next tutorial.